Welcome to the Business of You podcast, the show dedicated to helping service entrepreneurs build a better brand to grow a bigger business. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin, and I'm here each week empowering you to put yourself out there, sharing actionable tips and inspiring stories so you can create your personal brand, grow your dream business, and build your future, all while making more income and more impact doing exactly what you love. I'm super excited you're here. Now let's get going with today's show. Well, here we are. Welcome, Dan Roth. Here we are again. Good to have you. Dan is an executive recruiter with Zuna Executive Recruiting. Welcome, Dan, to the show. It's so good to have you here.
It's so nice not to be in charge of the production. We need to do something like your entrance video for the empowerment series. So you're in charge.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I actually made that myself on Canva. So,
whoa! No. Okay,
yay.
yeah.
Yes, it's
Wow,
fun. I love
cool.
Canva, as you know,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, it really makes all the difference and sets the tone. So today is super important because job seekers are kind of where LinkedIn started, right? Finding a job. It's not all about that here. People want to know, what does it take to land my dream job and up-level my career? And as you know, you're an executive recruiter and I'm a personal brand strategist. So it's the perfect topic. So we're going to just dive in, and Dan has given us permission to go over. So if this is getting really good and helping, we definitely want to go over if we can, and we want to. So Dan, you see, hundreds of applications. People reach out to you all the time. Where does one begin if they want to stand out? And why? Let's talk about this. Before we do that, I put this in my post the other day. Is personal branding important for job searching and career up leveling? And the answer in my poll, which has another day, is 85% say, heck yeah. You can't stand in this day and age alone, right? On the online world, you have to be an advocate. And personal branding, this thing is strategically marketing yourself. So you stand out. So your colleagues, hiring managers, people like Dan, they know you're the best person for the job. You're equipped. You have accomplishments. You're fit, right? That's huge. And you can produce results, and that's what they're looking for. So tell me, from a recruiter standpoint, where does one start and what do you guys look for?
So first of all, that poll 85% is really low. And I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm saying that.
Oh, I know.
Because it's the truth. The reality is, in today's job market, that personal branding and networking combined are leading to more than 90% of the jobs that are caught out on the open market. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, when I talk about personal branding, it starts with identifying your unique value proposition that nobody else has. When we talk about this, there's so many levels to it, because it's not just for the branding aspect, and this is just going on your LinkedIn or your Instagram, or I don't know why people use TikTok, but TikTok too, Twitter. What it's also doing is identifying you as an individual, and that's going to carry over to your interview. It's going to carry over to your job, and it's going to carry over to your life in general, because it's what's going to be separating you from every other candidate out there. Everything starts with identifying who you are as an individual and what separates you. That's where branding starts from the ground up, because we always talk about foundation. These are the roots in the ground. Or for the East Coast members, this is the basement, because I know the West Coast doesn't have any basements out here. It's a crying shame. So from there, once you establish what your true value proposition is, now, how do we accentuate this? We use LinkedIn as an example. What kind of posts are you just going to be commenting? How can you elevate your voice? And it's through all these different principles that you're doing it. Let's say that you're a writer. I spent 10 years as a managing editor. What is your niche? So if you're talking about sports and you're talking about, let's say, hockey, because it's underrepresented and I love it, what is it about hockey that is making it different? And then you start posting about, or you start commenting about other people's posts, and one thing comes to another, and people start recognizing you for your creativity and for your voice that's associated with it. And then when people notice you, that builds your value, and that value is what establishes your brand.
Wow, those are great words that you could be for, really, when you're job seeking, you're just marketing yourself like a product. I mean, and not to demote that, we're more than a product, of course, but you have to think strategically like that. Because what you're telling me is how I might help my personal branding clients. We have to get out there to, in your case, attract the job or the manager, hiring manager, recruiter. In other cases, the client or the customer. Tell us, without telling us all the trade secrets, I don't know how much you can tell us, when you're getting flooded with all these people DMing you or applying for the jobs, like, what do you see first and foremost if you're not even looking at LinkedIn? Like, where should they start even before LinkedIn? You gave a great example of the value proposition. Like, so how would they, and I'm asking in your lens because I know the answer, but how would they start this in simple terms if someone's confused? Well, what makes me unique? I don't know.
That's a great question. And it's not as easy. I think you probably think it's easier than I do, because self-awareness is something that we talk about all the time, but it's not something that a lot of people necessarily have, or it's something that they don't think about because we're currently in a very, I don't want to say me society, but there's not as much introspection as should necessarily be done on a daily basis. The first thing that a lot of people don't ask themselves is, what do I love? What do I enjoy? What makes my heart happy? What can I do tomorrow morning that I could wake up and be excited about? And if you don't have that, I don't know that you know what your brand is. And
Exactly.
and it sounds mean, but it's the truth. So now, what are ways to figure this out? I think a lot of it is self-exploration and asking yourself the tough questions. We don't always want to confront ourselves with things that may be uncomfortable. Am I happy in this job, even though it may pay well? Am I happy going to the supermarket every day and shopping on Instacart? Like, and I know these are random examples, but these are things that we have to think about. From there, I don't necessarily think it's the term storyboard, but I write notes and start thinking about how all these elements that you like play together. And when you start putting these things on, inevitably you're going to find a common theme. And then it's going to stare at you right in the face. And I'll give a quick example. And I've come to realize when it comes to you and I, people have seen us together so often that I don't know how many new people they're going to be. But for those that are not familiar with my story, and I don't want to assume everybody is, I came on social media as a job seeker where I thought I was staying in a specific direction. And it took me a long time in coming to terms with myself about who I am as an individual. It took me a long time before I realized that I was getting in my own way. And that's when I got into recruitment. And it was literally like, it was this quick. Pat Roquet and I were in a clubhouse room on a Wednesday morning. And she said, well, I have a job. I'm looking to hire somebody. And I said, well, I'm your friend. Why not give me a job? And she said, what do you want? And for whatever reason at that moment, I was ready to hear that. I thought about it. 3 hours later, I was supposed to meet with my coach, Ann Morgan. And within those 3 hours, I realized I was getting in my own way. Like that, I changed direction and the rest is history.
Wow.
I think it's 9 weeks later, and I went from having no job and pivoting careers to being in a full-time role as an executive.
Yeah, Dan, you're a good poster person for standing out online and also connecting. Like, if you're not sure, I want to back up real quick. So when I help my personal brand clients, we do a lot of this too, because, when we're trying to position them and define their brand, and some people come to me and they're like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm like, what lights you up is the word, but where do you notice? Because I notice with me too. Where do you notice when you're not hungry? You're like, who cares what you work through lunch? You don't even look at the time. You look up and at 2 hours, an hour just passed. That's your zone of genius. That's your zone of you and what you're doing. And in the context of conversation, not writing, but that's essentially true. It's the word where you flow and you don't mention notice time. How about that? But yeah, for job seekers, because the thing about it is you're like, I got to get a job, but like, should you even try to get a job if you hate it or if it pays more? No, like I really want people to be happy and like their brands. And I think for you too, because it's going to be miserable for everyone involved, right? So you want to be dialed in for that.
There's an exploratory component for definitely. I think, first of all, without getting into a complete rant, the way that our education system is run needs to be overhauled, but that's not here nor there. But there's an element of exploration that needs to be had. I'm also a big believer that one of my favorite quotes is, for everything, there's a season, time, and purpose under heaven. And the reason I say that is because I'm a firm believer that when the time is right, you're going to figure it out. I always used to think that one day I was going to have an epiphany and my life was going to be changed. And at 36 years old, I had almost given up hope that that was going to be the case. But then it happened. So we have to be ready for those moments to realize and we have to be ready to accept.
Yes. Yeah. And it will happen. And you don't need other people's permission. You have to listen to yourself. So this is great stuff. So getting into someone wanting that, a new job, maybe, because of COVID, they realize life's too short. I need a new job, or I want to get in a new industry. We know that your first suggestion, your first tip was to have your unique value proposition established, defined. Okay. Where do we start next? Because I do personal branding, you do career recruiting. So let's merge these two together because they're essentially the same. So I'm curious to know your second step.
Funny enough, I do both because, hey, I'm on this podcast having this conversation with a website being built where I'm going to be doing talks about personal branding.
Oh, good. Well, good. We want to hear your voice for sure.
Well, that's going to be a paid model, but that's a different story. I'm at that point, right? Okay, so let me just reestablish the question. We've established that we now have the voice. Are we now taking this to social media? What step are we at in the process so I could identify how to answer?
Well, let's bring everyone's up to speed. Okay, so we want to apply for this job or get a new job in this career. We definitely want to be completely dialed into who we are, what lights us up. So we're going in the right direction. So everyone's happy here. We're the right fit. And so we have our unique selling position, what makes us unique, what experiences we've had, we can bring to the table to the job. The second thing is obviously you get a good resume and a LinkedIn. Those go hand in hand for job recruiting. I don't know any other way to do it. I mean, right? Are there tools?
I would actually put a step in before that. So
interesting. Okay.
I'm a believer that networking is one of the most critical and underutilized components of the job search in general. When I first started job seeking, I was so let me be clear. First, once I developed my voice, I started commenting on other people that I respected. But this was part of my networking strategy. I knew once you find your niche, you should be starting at the same time that you're building your resume. It should be like one-on-one. You should be starting to connect and talk to those that are in your strategic zone. No, I'm not going to do that. That are in your specific area so that you can build the network. Because one of the things is no one person knows everything. And the more people that you have that are speaking to what you want to do and where you're going, the better equipped and the more knowledgeable that you're going to be. So at the same time that you're curtailing your resume, I am a big believer, and this is not a sales pitch because I don't do this, but I am a big believer in identifying when you need help. One of the most monumental things I ever did in my search was when I started working with Anna, because while I had everything in me, I didn't necessarily have that direction. And coaches could be for a lot of reasons. It could be because you're just not mentally at that point where you believe in yourself enough. It could be because you need direction in terms of how to approach certain situations. There could be a million reasons. But people need to do a better job of investing in themselves. And I don't want this to be misconstrued as Dan is saying spend money for everything. No, I am saying if you can afford to spend the time and energy and money into this, and you recognize it's going to be a difference maker, you should absolutely do it.
Okay.
So I want to put that part in there. So now kind of getting back to it. So now you're working on your networking, you're getting your help, you're curtailing your resume, and the resume should be tailored to every job that you apply to. This is about keywords, people, nothing more, nothing less. Then at that point, what was the other thing that you were saying?
Oh, I think I said do LinkedIn and the resume go hand in hand to step out on and, start using them as tools. And connection and networking is another tool.
Sorry, and I know I'm being a little bit
No, we want to know all the details, like what makes a good resume and then LinkedIn profile from a recruiter, hiring manager point of view.
Resumes, I am admittedly not an expert in. I'm a big believer in you know what you know and you know what you don't know. I know what I like when I look at a resume, but there's so many intricacies with the ATS system that, quite frankly, I'll leave it to the experts and focus on
ATS is what, like the scanning? So tell me what that is.
Yes. Okay. So that's an important thing. Applicant tracking system. So there's a lot of times when you submit resumes, what will happen is the HR or recruiting department will put your application through a scanner to identify whether you're appropriate fit. And it looks at a number of factors, including keywords and otherwise. Here's a great example. If you go on LinkedIn, and I don't know if you only have premium or what, but you'll see that when you look at jobs, you'll have 4 of 10 keywords for a position. Well, if you then tailor your resume or tailor your profile in that matter to include more of those keywords, especially if you actually have them and you're not just like kind of BSing that you do, then that's going to take your level of readiness. And instead of being being qualified as much as 50%, now you'll be qualified as much as 10% or 5% because you have those keywords in there, and you'll be at 8, 9, 10 out of 10.
Okay.
So that's where the applicant tracking system comes into play. As recruiters, we do review resumes. So I want to make that clear, because I think there's this misnomer that we send it all through the ATS. That's not accurate. So let's go to profile.
Yeah, because Dan, okay, I want to give a shout out to Dan, because last week he did a really good LinkedIn profile from the point of view recruiter post. So if you want to read a really in-depth one, go check that out on his profile. But tell us some more, recap that, and anything else you would like to add, which matters and helps people stand out to you guys.
Sure. And let me give credit where credit's due. I was not always the best when it came to LinkedIn profiles. My opinion will sometimes dissent from some other people, but I look at it the best way I can. And the way that I learned about this was simply by going into these rooms and seeking out the experts, looking at the John Experians of the world and the others that are really critical within the expertise. So I just want to give credit where credit's due. For me as a recruiter, I keep saying this, the most underutilized area is the banner. A lot of people think, hey, I'm going to put this landscape on there. I'm going to do this, like this foo-foo stuff. Here's the thing. The banner is the first thing that you see when you get to your page. You see it before the about section. You see it before the experience. You see it before everything. This is a critical area. This is the front page news. So here's what I like. If you are a job seeker, I want to see a clean background where the background is either something that depicts what you're doing or something solid, smooth, specific color gradient. I want to see your name big and bold. I want to see what your ideal job title is. So so last night I worked on one that was HR management, senior talent acquisition specialist. So I want to see name and then maybe a picture or something that identifies the specific role. So if you're in HR, there could be HR symbol. If you're in a recruitment, you could have a picture of somebody picking out people from a group. There's a number of things that you could do. If you're in tech, what a great thing to do is we talk about tech stack. What tech stack is basically the different programs that these technical applicants use that they're specialized in on a daily basis. If you take your top 4 or 5 programs that you use to and you put that on the side, and tech recruiters looking, they're going to see, okay, you already have A, B, C, D, and E. This is the programs that are the main faculty of what we're recruiting for. Okay, now I know I need to zoom down.
Okay. So it's a scannable thing. It's a first impression scannable thing to make it or break it. Okay.
It is for me, because if somebody has something that's pristine, it tells me the dedication and the time that they're spending. So this is also a subconscious thing. If I see that you've taken the time to put in these elements, then I know that you're going to then
detail oriented.
And keep on going. Title, I don't want to see 15 different things. I want to see 3 or 4 specialties. I do not want to see anything else. Some people would put in their expertise areas as well. Like, I don't necessarily need to see it. I'm more of a form and function type of person where I like it very symmetrical, so to speak. Let's talk about featured section.
It's underutilized for sure. And at least I think.
Very, very underutilized. I do not want to see a picture of your friends. I do not want to see a party that you went to last week. I want to see something that makes you stand. If you are somebody that is looking for a job that's different than other jobs maybe, and you're able to break down what that niche is and explain it to the average audience, I want you on video. I want to see accomplishments that you've had. I want to see articles that you've posted that you're proud about, something that tells me about who you are. And don't flood it. Having 4 to 5 things in your featured section is absolutely fine. Anything more than that can go to a GitHub, which is basically a repository where people can put all their stuff, or otherwise. Do not flood everything. Do not give us 100 things to look through. So moving down your about section, for me, this is the main differentiator between a resume and a LinkedIn profile. I am a person that wants to help people, not stats. I want to know who you are. Tell me about where you were. Tell me about what you're doing. Tell me about where you want to go. Give me a
summary you're talking about.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the about summary? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't sure. I thought I had
No, that's well, it depends on if you have creator mode or not. So it depends on your
you're right.
Stacking, because it changes. But I just want to clarify. So your about summary is not about, 20 years experience, blah, blah, blah. You want to tell a story tell
Well,
us something
it can
interesting? Tell
be.
me a little bit more.
It can be a summary, but the
Those are
difference is how
boring.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, it's how you format it.
Okay.
Because remember something, once we get down to the experience section, we're already going to see that 20-year back. So now I
Yeah.
want to know in the about section simply the path that you went, the road that you went down. Tell me about how you started at the beginning of the yellow brick road and what happened as you moved through it to meet the wizard.
Well,
And
that's a
then,
good thing. That's interesting to me, right? Because this is one thing, just to hold that thought. I see
yeah,
too many people regurgitate or repeat what's
mhm.
below. And this is it's like your about page on your website. Tell us a good story. I always like to say, well, for me, maybe not you, talk about the problem or what you do to lead. I instead of leading with you and then get into you. So make it intriguing. It should be treated as a headline, an entryway, because you have to click for more, right? Just like you do for a post. So what are your thoughts on that?
So, no, I agree with you 100%. And I'll give you an example. I'm working with a job seeker that's looking for a director of DEI position.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about these things that are so specific, diversity, equity, inclusion is not something that's soft. Like
Mm-hmm.
these are in-depth topics. When you're a recruiter, when you're a company hiring, do I want to know the statistics of where you've been? No, I want to know what about it, what led you to being in the position that you want to take such a hold of changing the way that things are done.
Yeah.
That's going to tell me what your heart is. That's going to tell me why you're doing it and your motivation. I would never hire a job seeker that I felt was completely unmotivated.
Yes.
It's sad but true. Now, after you get through that story in the about section, if you want to
Mm-hmm.
put some skills, absolutely feel free to do so. The other quick thing I want to mention is
Mm-hmm.
don't be afraid to be bold with how you do it. So if you do have bullet points, use emojis. You can be creative within that to break up some of the muddle.
Yeah, instead of
Uh,
don't just put a wall of text because it's
yeah,
so hard to
yeah.
read. The scanner may be able to read it, but the humans in today's day and age that we scan, we can't process it like that.
If I
Yeah.
want to read a wall of text, I'll pick up the New York Times.
And
I
even
mean,
then, it's so hard to read. I'm telling
oh
you,
yeah,
social media has
I,
destroyed our eyes and our
I
processing, you know?
the New York Times is what
So
I
very,
read when I
very good. Yeah,
yeah.
no, this is all really good. So tell us when we get to that experience section. That's where a lot of it gets picked up by the search engines for you and your tracking software, right? The experience tells a lot. Is that true? For
It
recruiting
is.
and HR scanning. Okay.
And by the way, I just realized how much time we've taken. It
Oh,
feels
I
like five
know.
minutes.
I
It
know. That's what happens when you're having fun talking. Okay,
yeah.
but you're giving
Okay.
us this is a big chunk of it. So let's finish the
Yeah.
LinkedIn because that's we're on LinkedIn and people want to
No,
know
let's
what
talk.
do I
Let's
need to
talk.
do from recruiting, job seeking, career up leveling point of view. You told us all the good stuff, the
Yeah.
about summary. Now, the experience is where you can really highlight maybe some of your accomplishments, not exactly what you did, but maybe what results you brought. Is that what I'm thinking?
Yes. Yes. Thank you for
Yes.
saying that because that's exactly
Yes.
where I was about to go with it.
Okay.
Let me speak to you, job seekers. Stop putting summaries of what you did in your experience. I don't care that much. I want to know the value you added to the organization. Give me statistics. If you were able to raise sales 17%, I want to know I want to see that in there. If you were able to coach 10 people that wound up getting promotions, I want to see that stuff. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I see somebody that just simply put their job description and paste it in.
Yes.
Also, make these uniform. So if you have bullets, if you have 4 things of job experience, I want to see each one be uniform with bullets. Here's the other thing, and this is something that really, really, really needs to be mentioned. And I'm going to speak for a second to some of my older job seekers because in this country, we're working later and later into our careers.
Mhm.
Ageism is a very real thing. However, do not leave out things that show who you are and the value you bring just because you feel like you're worried about having bias against you.
Mhm.
If you have 10 years of experience, but then 20 years ago you did something that's relevant to the role that you want, include that in there. And there's ways around this. You could also include something, instead of putting the years, you could put additional work includes, leave out the years, but so that they could still see it.
Mhm.
We have to get out of the habit of being so worried about what other people are going to perceptually think at the
Based on
expense of
age. Yeah.
at the expense of putting things in that are going to get us the job.
Yeah, no, that's an important fact. I'm glad you addressed that. So,
It has to be.
okay, so after experience, which is good. So Results, results, result. What about like the endorsements, recommendations? Do you guys volunteer stuff? All the,
I
all the
love it.
accolades, you
I
put all
love
that
it.
to just beef it all out. Okay. Make it like your expert, this is your resume on stilts, right? Your resume can only
Yeah.
have so much, and this can speak volumes. And then I always say, have recommendations, let other people speak for you. And the good thing about the LinkedIn
Oh,
recommendations, yeah, there you have to be connected with them. We know it's legit. It's not fake, it's totally legit. And it's, it could be a colleague. You could like have a colleague testimonial or recommendation, have a boss, someone who you work with to show off your dimensions and who you are. This is so valuable. Like I always help
yeah.
people with branding on their LinkedIn, but this is great from a perspective of a recruiter. Now, what other
Well,
things go? What
there's
else did I miss out? Tell me.
you did you missed a component. And by the
Oh,
way,
please tell me. What is that?
the only reason I talk to Michelle like this is because she's one of my best friends,
Oh
and
yeah, he
we
doesn't normally
literally talk.
talk to people like
Yeah,
this.
like
Yeah,
like look, am I blunt? Yeah, I can be, but Michelle
it's
is.
okay. I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. I want to talk about certifications for a second.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah, if you are out of work, and look, I'm very careful to say I know everybody has different budgets, but one of the key factors for me, and this is something I did, this is not something that I'm preaching and not acting on, is that if you're out of work, you want to be continuously learning because you want
Hmm.
to show employers that you are not sitting with the information that you had before, that you're constantly progressing. So if you have the capability of getting LinkedIn Premium, which is $29 a month, and you could take
Hmm.
these LinkedIn learning courses, absolutely do it. And this is especially valuable if you're pivoting to a different field like I did. When
Yes.
I pivoted from global project management into recruitment, I took 50 hours worth of courses that first week.
Oh my goodness.
I was insane, but that's another story. Not something everybody could do. But having these things, because not only is this valuable within your LinkedIn profile, but if you talk to most resume writers, you could also add them into your resume
Hmm.
as another component. So that part of it, recommendations is something. One of my first viral posts was talking about recommendations. I'm a firm believer that you should give out at least 2 recommendations per month with
Okay.
expecting nothing in return.
Hmm.
And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is it can make somebody's day and show them that you value them. And I'm a firm believer in the law of reciprocity.
Oh yeah,
So not that you expect something, but it's like the law of it's like karma,
comes
where
back.
it really does. And then when people see that you've given out a lot of recommendations, they're more inclined to give you because they know that this is the type of person you are. As a job seeker, you have to be your own greatest advocate. So
Yep.
if you don't have recommendations, ask for them. But definitely, if you're not going to do 2 a month, do 1 or 2, and don't be it to somebody that you don't know. Make sure that
Hmm.
if you're asking as well as receiving, that it's somebody that knows you well enough that they're able to do it with full confidence. I've had people offer to give me recommendations that I don't know, and I will say, please don't. And
Yeah.
it's not
No, it
because I'm
should
not
be
a
a
person.
level of knowledge and can vouch for you if they would vouch for you. Yeah. And one of the things though, people may not want to include have to go ask their old boss. So have a coworker, a client, there's people who you're connected with that can vouch. So good points there. And I want to give a shout out to LinkedIn Learning. You do get a free trial for premium the first month. So you can take advantage of that. Depending on industry, and there are a lot of free certifications out there. HubSpot Academy is an amazing one. If you're in marketing or thing, they have tons of ones on social media. So it depends on your industry, but there's so many out there, or there's low cost ones too.
Yeah.
So I,
I
I
want to
highly recommend those.
I want to give one other shout out, and this is simply because we know her. We do so much work with diversity, equity, inclusion. Liz
Mhm.
Liba, who's a LinkedIn
Hey,
top
Liz.
voice, has a website. She's actually a college professor. And within her website, she has a free course about the history of DEI and correct language to use. And she actually has sections where she'll grade it on the spot for you. So it's a real course. So I want to give her
I
that
didn't know
shout
that.
out. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I'll send
awesome.
it to you.
We can, I'll send it to me and I'll put the link in the comments and the show notes and all that because I would love to take that as well. So this is amazing. You've told us what to do. You've given us a really detailed lowdown on the LinkedIn profile, which you guys are looking at. You've told me some of the mishaps. Are there any, okay, from this interview, I always like to say, what are mistakes? You've told me. What are your 3 takeaways, Dan, for someone wanting to, show up in a stronger way and they're about to, look for a new job or career? What are your 3
How,
takeaways?
how much time do we have? Um,
Not forever, but
yeah, no, no,
the
no.
highlight reel.
So here's the problem. There are so many things that need to be done that, where are you? Can you still hear
Do you
me?
not see me? Yeah. Can you not see me?
Well, I went to get you the website. I think I must have
Oh,
missed something.
okay. Yeah, here I
So,
am. Here I
okay,
am.
okay, that's fine. There's so many things that you need to do as a job seeker, and I'm not going to touch on all of them, but I will mention, because we could get into a lot longer discussion, networking is the number one thing that you need to do as a job seeker in the current economy. The number
Okay.
two, the number two thing that you need to do is stop relying on applications and really start focusing on informational interviews. The brief explanation of informational interviews is that if you know that there's a company that you're looking for, that you're looking at, you should be reaching out to somebody in the role that you want and asking to have a conversation with them, not about you, about them. But the goal is
Okay.
to network and build that relationship. And eventually down the line, that could lead to a direct referral in. And this is how the majority of people are getting jobs.
Okay.
I'm going to give two more, and one's very brief. So actually, both are very brief. Do not use the easy apply function on LinkedIn.
Good point. And why is
There's
that for someone,
Well,
just
first
in
of all,
case
it's
I want to
lazy.
know?
First,
Okay.
first of all, it's lazy, and like I've done it. I understand it, but there's a couple of aspects to it. One is that it's only going to get results about 1 in 10 to 12 times as far as a
Mm,
response back. Uh,
okay.
the second reason is because when people are using that easy apply, they're less likely to be tailoring their resumes to that job,
Yeah.
and that's already going to put them in a bad position. So what it really does is it sends the wrong message and gets people in bad habits, and it's very easy to get into a bad habit. It's very
Yep.
hard to get out of it.
Okay.
So by utilizing the easy apply, if somebody winds up getting a response after 10 tries, that they're going to think, okay, if I keep on doing this, it's going to work.
Yeah.
Even if it does, even if you start getting some interviews, if you notice the level of interview that you're getting, it's not going to be up to what you want. So
Good to know.
that's the reason. And the last thing I want to bring up to job seekers, this is an excruciatingly difficult process. Be okay knowing that taking a break is normal. It's okay
Mm,
to shut down and take a day or two off. This is a stressful environment, and you are going to do, oh, this is super hypocritical, and hypocritical, sorry. I am being super hypocritical right now, but it's okay to take that day or two because you want to be at your best when you do get those calls.
yes.
And if you are down in the dumps, if you're not allowing yourself room to breathe, then it's going to show up. So
Great
please
advice. Yeah.
give yourself some grace.
I love that. And that's just in everyday life too. So anyone else listening. Okay. Those are great. Thank you for the bonus tip on self-care. So
Oh, there you are. Okay.
do it for both of us. Okay. So before we end today, I always ask, what is your personal or professional mantra and that you would love to share with our listeners? And in context of maybe even today in our topic or just in anything on personal branding, thought leadership, what do you have to share with us to inspire us, motivate us, keep us going?
My best tip is hire Michelle.
I did not pay him to say that.
That's a great question. My mantra. Why couldn't you have asked Jess Smith? She's so much better at mantras than I am.
You can come back to us and let us know in the comments. I didn't mean to. I may have forgotten to
No,
tell you that I was going to ask you that.
no. Well, normally I'm okay on the spot, but what I would say is, so my personal mantra is that the true character of a person is determined in what they do when nobody's watching.
Oh, that's
And
great.
that's something my father taught me from a very, very young age. So when I'm working with job seekers, they may not see it. As Luna Martin, who I work with at Zuna as a CEO, will attest, I'm always thinking 6 steps ahead. And as a job seeker, this doesn't mean that you have to be thinking that, but you should have a strategic initiative in order to do it, in order to be fully successful. And don't apply to places because you think that you have to be there because you think that's the only game in town. Apply
Hmm.
because you want to, and bring your heart into it. It's okay for us to put our heart into things. So feel confident that when you do, it's going to come back to benefit you in the end.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Dan, for sharing that. That means a lot. And it really goes hand in hand with personal branding too, when people aren't around and it's what they think of you. So today's been wonderful. Shout out to you and to all you do for everybody. And where can people find you if they want to, of course, go follow Dan on LinkedIn, not Dan Roth, the LinkedIn editor, but the other Dan Roth. And what is
I
your URL just so they don't confuse the two?
Okay, so my URL is linkedin.com/IN/Dan Roth 4. You know why I'm laughing. It feels very weird, but it's hard to miss me.
I know it really is. It really is. But you never know who comes into, on the feed and
Yeah,
sees it, but just in
yeah.
case.
So you can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, for messages, you could find me on Instagram, although I hate Instagram. I only use it for messages.
Hmm.
You will not, under any circumstance, find me on TikTok.
Never.
Um, ZunaExecutiveRecruiting.com. I have a
Okay.
website being built called DanRothConsulting.com. And
Those are great places. I mean, we'll find you in one of those or all of the above.
oh,
So,
but the one thing that
yeah.
we should mention, the one thing
Yes.
that you and I should mention is that Michelle, who is one of the most genuine and gracious superstars I've ever met, as many of you know, was the co-founder of me with me on the Women's Empowerment Series. So
Yes.
every month you can find us on there. Michelle is moderating. I'm usually behind the scenes. We have July set up, and
Yes.
then in August we're changing things up. We
Yeah.
are doing a 2-day event, and we're specifically talking about Black issues in the workplace and in social media. And just to give a brief run through of some of the amazing guests that we have Luna Martin, we have Liz Lee, we have Future, we have Chris Murray, we have John Graham Jr., we have Troy Holt.
Hmm.
We have Madison Mobley, Tiara
Yep.
Swain, one of my favorite people in the world, Tiara. We have absolutely two stacked
And we
panels.
might be doing 2 days of it. That's how
No,
many
we are
people
doing
we have.
2 days.
Oh, we are doing 2 days. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
we are
yeah.
not. I don't mean to correct you. Yeah, it's official. We're doing 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
The question is whether we do 3. If I'm being honest, then
Yeah.
we're gonna have to start charging people a couple $100s for the event. And
Yeah. No, but we have like 500 people who sign up for these. So they're
yeah,
really well attended, and not just, but we're not doing it for us. We're doing it to
no,
have conversations for change and highlight the need. And I'm honored to do that with you and have a wonderful panel of so many amazing people each month. So
just
it's
be
been great.
prepared to get emotional if you watch these.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes.
Oh
It was
boy,
hard. I'm getting teary eyed talking about it. Let's not do that because I'm going to
um,
cry.
I do want to give a quick shout out, if it's okay, and maybe you could do
Sure.
this, to what's going on with thought leadership branding today.
Yes. Okay. So if you're watching live today, please put here live, hashtag here live or here replay. But tonight, the Thought Leadership Branding Club, which we're a part of, we're moderators in LinkedIn Mastery, we're having our kickoff launch party tonight, and it is at 6 p.m. Eastern. And Bobby Umar is our wonderful founder of the club, which is 14,000 members strong. Please join us. I'll put some links in this, and then you can go to Bobby's profile. We'll be broadcasting. We're going to have, tons of people signed up for it. So we're welcoming new members, new moderators. Right now, we have about 35 plus rooms a week on so many topics. So another place where you'll see Dan and me.
Michelle and I are typically the co-hosts on Saturdays of LinkedIn Mastery. I've been asked to take it over. And on Fridays, Liz Liba is on there as the main moderator talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. On Saturdays, I've decided to continue that conversation. And last week we went for 4 hours.
And I wasn't there. I was out of town. So I can't even, that was just really powerful.
It was crazy. And
really,
we could have
I'm
gone
so
longer.
glad you changed it. Yeah, no, I'm so glad that's the thing. And then Thursdays, I co-host with some other wonderful moderators, and we're all about LinkedIn content. So please join me Thursday afternoons in the Thought Leadership Branding Club. We'd love to have you there. Dan, I think you and I could talk forever, but we must go, right? Because LinkedIn is probably like, you guys are talking too long.
Let me make this one offer. If you are watching right now and you follow Michelle, I will open it up, if you're a job seeker, to 2 free half-hour consultations about your job search.
Wow, Dan, that's so generous.
Well, it's you, so it's natural for me to want to do something. And we could talk about branding. We could go over your LinkedIn profile, whatever you want. You have to follow Michelle, and she'll be the determining factor of which 2 are chosen.
Thank you for that. I don't want to preference anyone over the other, but just to be fair, we'll do something like a random.org drawing. That's so incredibly generous. So he's offering 2 free half-an-hour resume or LinkedIn profile reviews. If you're
anything to do with the job search, it could be how to whatever.
Okay, well, that is so generous. Thank you, Dan. Wow. So everyone here, please take advantage of that. Dan is incredibly talented, gifted, and generous. So I appreciate it. Well, Dan, thank you as always for appearing in my show this time. And I appreciate you as a friend and a colleague and all the good things you bring to people. You're so appreciated. So
You're right.
only
I
thing I
could have
could tell
stayed
you
here
is
for
take care of
hours.
yourself. Self-care is important. Remember what I
Yeah,
told you.
that's
Yeah.
not part of my MO.
I know, but you got to stay taking care of yourself to help others. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin. I look forward to seeing you back here with an amazing topic and amazing guests. Until then, take care and I'll catch you next week. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in today. You know, we definitely need more impactful entrepreneurs like you out there. So if you'd like to learn more about how I can help you build your personal brand to grow your business, please check out yourbrandyourbusiness.com. And until next time, you have a brand to build, a message to share, and people to impact. Now go put yourself out there and watch the business of you grow.